All right, welcome guys back to our Schema Therapy Hack series. Thanks for tuning in. This is our second hack in the series. And reflecting on it, well, first thing is thanks for tuning in because we had a good feedback and we had a lot of people jumping on to YouTube and watching it and whatnot. So we would appreciate that. And actually, Chris and I were having a chat about it in the days after, and we realized there's like a double meaning to the
There's a
word
double
hack.
meaning to hack. There's the hack that we don't know what we're doing and we're both hacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we were thinking more the sort of shortcuts, like schema therapy shortcuts. But then,
Yeah.
but then we thought that the double meaning, funny enough, probably applies. So we thought we'd bring that up in jest. Couple of hacks out here trying to do schema therapy,
Couple of hacks doing hacks.
but willing to talk about them. So
But we are accredited and we know what we're talking about. And
yes, of course.
hopefully you believe us.
Yes, of course.
We've been a part of project writing a book on schema therapy, and it's going to be the Cambridge Guide of Schema Therapy, and that's coming out. And I've got a hack that both Rob and myself sort of stumbled across and conceived.
I'm working on this for the book.
Should I shoot my first hack? I've got two
Do it,
mini.
man. Let's do it. Bring it on.
Okay, so basically,
A figure, right? You're going to share a figure?
yeah. I'll bring up my figure in a moment. Yeah. I guess it mainly to do with eliminatory parenting in schema therapy. So eliminatory parenting is a big part of the schema therapy process about sort of going beyond the standard level of care. And there's this particular figure that we kind of like to use, and we use this a lot in our trainings, but it's a good one to sort of to go over. Just looking at the idea of where the therapist can sort of be directed in terms of their eliminatory parenting. Often, therapists we tend to focus on the care and nurturance and that kind of side of things. So what we've kind of done is sort of looked at developing a bit of a spectrum where it's not just the care and nurturance and that's sort of the nice stuff that we all do.
The warm fuzzies.
It's kind of the flip side to that. So, what we're sort of looking at is this idea that there's nurturance and support, and and in that kind of side of things, we've got sort of attunement and nurturance and care and directly meeting the needs of the client, and that kind of stuff is the sort of the good cop side of things. But then on the flip side of that is sort of boundaries and confrontation, and some of that stuff is going to be that empathic confrontation and limit setting. So we were talking before about this, that often with the client we've got like it's almost like a point on this continuum where we're moving along, and just in general how we're approaching the client and what the client might need. Maybe they need more nurturance in a session, or overall maybe they need more boundaries and confrontation overall. But we also were talking just before about the idea that we could use this model for experiential techniques.
Yeah.
So,
and it's a kind of, I guess the idea too, it's the mix of, I guess you'd probably never like in the extreme of like good cop and bad cop or something. But what I guess doing this, what we notice is there's some sort of mix of often of empathy and directedness.
Yeah. And I guess in terms of experiential techniques, we can use that same idea. Sometimes, say for an imagery exercise or a chair work exercise, we might be needing to kind of focus on the nurturance and support side of things. So we might be going into an imagery exercise and we might need to support the child in the image or the client in the image. Sometimes we might need to kind of provide guidance. Sometimes we might need to flip and sort of do sort of gentle empathic confrontation to antagonists and to the client themselves. And sometimes we might need to use limit setting usually with antagonists, but sometimes in the domain of like maybe impulsivity or, sort of entitlement, this sort of stuff, then we might use that kind of thing with the client's child self. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think where this comes into its own as well is yes, we can use this model to think about the ideal stance for the schema therapist in a session, right? So, if you've got a client, I always think about the extreme. So you've got a client who let's say they've been pushing boundaries like big time, in the sessions, and you've been thinking, right, that's it. When I see this client, you've been thinking on it, you get supervision, you're going to next session coming in straight up boundary setting limits.
Yeah.
Right. And they come in, but for some unknown reason, they come in completely vulnerable, completely opening up.
Yeah.
Right. So what do you have to do?
Well, is that a rhetorical question, Rob?
Yeah, what are we going to do? We're going to, right? We're going to be flexible, and we have to can this limit setting stuff for now, because what's needed in the moment, more of the care attunement type stuff.
Yeah.
So we can.
There's micro and macro stuff. There's micro kind of moments like that, but also I guess there's the overarching kind of ideas where we might need to spend a lot more generally in the nurturance and support domain, or the boundaries of confrontation domain as well, isn't there?
Totally. So this just talks in the moment and more generally. Talking to our mate Lars Madsen, working with a lot of forensic guys, he talks about often the first piece of therapy being on that right-hand side and really needing to establish the boundaries and things. And a lot more working in that end. But coming back to your point about experiential techniques, Chris, let's go through and think about it. So with antagonists, we can use this model. Yeah. And if we start with on the right-hand side, what kind of antagonists might you be?
Yeah, so abusive antagonists or punitive antagonists, we might be sort of working with that kind of outlook and that approach. I guess move into empathic confrontation, maybe more demanding antagonists, and sort of stuff, or you're sort of trying to reason and trying to appeal to the best nature of a demanding antagonist, or a well-meaning. I guess in terms of guidance, maybe it might be more about those sort of depriving antagonists that are well-meaning but ultimately unhelpful. So it might be the dad.
They don't know what they're doing, or they don't know what's needed.
And getting them help. We often talk about that in imagery as well. We're going to go and get your mum some help, so leave it with me, I'll take care of it. So that could be a part of the guidance piece for the client.
So you might be saying, hey, I was speaking to a mum saying, look, I know you're really busy and you've got so much duties and washing up. I'll take care of this. What you need to do is go and talk to little Jenny.
Yeah, leave it with me. So the adult problem. Yep. And then the care stuff could be directly, meeting the needs of the client in the image. So you might be just talking to little Jenny and hanging out with her and providing care and nurturance and compassion.
And even with antagonists, I've had clients with an antagonist, let's say, who has serious mental illness.
Yeah.
Maybe responding to voices or something.
Yeah, sure.
And where some level of care might be needed. So the point being, we can apply this model. Of course, we apply it to our limited reparenting stance, but it can also help guide us as to our stance, like the level of strength, if you will, or assertiveness. In the experiential techniques and dialogues.
Awesome. So that's hack one. Hack one is that.
So 2 hacks in, man.
Hack one, I go double hack. Okay, so hack 2 is this. Okay, so now I don't have a whiz bang whiteboard like you do, but I'm just using the Zoom variant. Okay, so something that I kind of get people to think about is that in terms of responsibility in a session, particularly experiential stuff, but also cognitive work, or just generally amount of workload the therapist does. You got the therapist and the client, and I guess what we would say, and it was different from other therapy approaches, that other approaches assume that the client is knowledgeable and able and willing, and they're able to sort of rebut themselves and have reason and have emotional kind of strength. But often the clients we're working with don't have that. Okay, and that's the design of the therapy itself. So what I pitch to people is that, maybe in terms of your active role in imagery or chair work or doing cognitive work and this sort of stuff, and pushing behavioral change, maybe it's a bit like this, that, at the start, the therapist is doing more of the work. They're going into the image. They're doing more of the work. They're kind of responding to antagonists. They might be doing a lot more of work on the flashcards. But over time, this is time, over the time, you're kind of flipping, all right? So this is reduced amount of work. So you're kind of down here, okay? So, this might be over a year or 2 work where you're doing a lot of the imagery and chair work and whatnot. But, over time here, this is the client. The client might be sitting back, taking the ride for a bit, and you're helping them bond and connect with you. But there's a point where they kind of take over the responsibility. So you're pushing for independence, pushing for autonomy and change, and you're kind of moving forward this way. So I guess this bit here is pretty important,
Totally.
So you kind of like, it's one of that sort of time where you're taking the edge up, you're pushing them to sort of maybe, take more responsibility. And then by this stage, you're sort of just sort of facilitating. And you might this bit here probably could be focusing a lot on behavioral pattern breaking and pushing people to do new things out of their comfort zone. But and obviously here, they're taking up more responsibility in terms of going out and pushing themselves. Yeah.
So, awesome, love it. Yeah, we love a good figure in schema therapy.
So just I guess the point is that work out where you are. It's sometimes it might be the person's healthy adult is the time here. Oh, so this is the therapist and this is the length of time, but the time can be constricted really based on the strength of the healthy adult mind.
That's right.
If you've got a strong, healthy adult, and you've got a kind of dug in problem and you think some experiential techniques might really tip the person over and make some sort of change, or, you think the person can make sort of moves quicker, then this length of time is constricted.
So there'd be a steep curve then. It just kind of like you play around for a little bit and then
so you might kind of find that you do 10, 20 sessions and then you're pushing for change immediately. But for someone who's got sort of
could even be earlier, right? With very high functioning
times. Yeah. So it really depends. So the length of time is really determined on the strength of the healthy adult and the willingness to do experiential techniques. And I guess for me, it's something to think of, because generally in the past, schema therapy has always sort of come out from an approach where the therapist does all the work. In some ways, it's an implicit thing, and the pushing for change for the client has somewhat taken sort of, it's implied, but it's not really focused on. So I think if you've got that idea that you're ultimately pushing for them to be more independent, that could be a way to sort of structure the sessions.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's also one of the areas that can sort of get us stuck. Like with supervisees, they seem to be doing everything basically right, but they haven't moved into that transition.
Yeah.
That many sessions down the road, they're doing all the work. So that's an important transition. Yeah. Moving them into the autonomy phase.
And so there's 2 hacks for everyone. And so that means we have 3 overall hacks. We've got a goal in mind. We're going to get to 50 hacks.
Why not? As we just as they come up, we're just going to tape them. But awesome. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for those 2 hacks, mate. I'll be seeing you soon and see you all around the traps. This is Schema Therapy Hacks. See you soon.
Bye.